So I want to begin thinking a bit about
Order.
and how order functions, how order is
Interchangeable.
interchangeable with
Attunement.
attunement. So the order of something could potentially be exchanged with the idea that two things are attuned. So the sort of constitutive quality of a thing being ordered can relate to how it connects with another object or how it causes
language.
Causes language. I don't see exactly how that's connected, but we'll just continue. So another way of getting into this would be to start to think about
What is
what is,
a gesture?
and how a gesture,
Nonverbal.
a nonverbal gesture,
Is
attunement. Actually attunement. So a nonverbal gesture, which is, I guess, the gesture that my hand is making now, is essentially attuned to my own feelings, all the sort of affects beneath my feelings, and all of the nonverbal gestures that I'm experiencing from all of you. In that regard,
what is
incompatible. Is almost incompatible with resonance. Because that is the case, because what is always fleeting, and what is, I guess, cannot be. I guess what is resonant must always be not located in the present. It has to be located in some sort of non-presence.
The meaning.
The meaning of
the experience of the inadequacy of language
is also related to this. But before moving on, I think it's probably a good idea for me to establish a relationship between two previously distinct contexts. Yeah, two previously distinct contexts. So I guess I could potentially say this relationship between me giving a performance and another time that I've given a performance. And I think that there's a relation between those two things, a certain kind of connection with probably the nonverbal gestures that were existing there, like a certain kind of nervousness in myself, perhaps a certain kind of trying to move through that nervousness. But in spite of that, I guess it'd be nice to think more about
seeing as
and how seeing as relates to
the experience of understanding.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. So I would say that seeing as is wordless, that it's
impossible.
It's perhaps impossible to achieve a pure kind of seeing as, a singular seeing as.
Intuitive.
And it's also intuitive. And I would say seeing as points to
order.
It points to order, that there's a certain kind of ordering through a pointing. And also it
causes a gesture.
It causes gestures. That gestures such as the cracking of the fingers or the snapping of the pen are facilitated by a certain kind of as. They're facilitated by a sort of assignation of meaning given by saying this is seen as something. Don't try to resolve a contradiction, but rather get a clear view of the state of affairs before you. That's probably a really good idea. So I think I was trying to, before, resolve a contradiction between gestures and seeing as being present or not present, but perhaps there's just a contradiction there between things potentially residing in the presence or being or feeling that.
A whole
or a wholeness
precipitates non-identical.
Let go of a single proposition. So a whole precipitates non-identical being. I guess that seems a little counterintuitive. You think that a whole would sort of determine things that are identical, but maybe a whole is grouped in such a way where things aren't being identical? I'm not exactly sure. Perhaps a feature of a whole is deep, or is
wordless,
or
is alive to the experience of the failure of language.
Yeah, I would definitely say that a feature of a whole is alive to the failure of the experience of language. That many times wholes are brought together and or groups are ordered that cannot be expressed via language.
Let go of what you hope is there and see what is there.
Yeah, I think I was hoping that language could have some sort of meaning or not meaning through this, but maybe I guess the direction being to just see what's there. I guess more generally, I was hoping that I could make meaning out of these disparate terms before me, that I would sort of push these buttons and make some sort of meaning, but actually, perhaps what's there is just fragments of words, and I should perhaps just recognize that. I should stop hoping that these fragments make some sort of meaning, that these fragments make some sort of
A whole
that these fragments make a whole, that they can cohesively come together. Stop hoping that these fragments
language,
form language, and rather be okay and recognize that
representational,
they're representational, that they're perhaps
not one,
that they're not one, that they're inherently divided.
attunement,
And I think if I come to realize that, I'd realize that attunement is
explains
that attunement perhaps explains,
the experience of the inadequacy of language.
because we can be attuned to things, we could be completely attuned to something that is completely not verbal.
Find a goal beneath your goal. That's a more essential goal.
Yeah. So if the goal was to string together meaning, perhaps a more essential goal is to just point and hope, as Wiki says, to sort of assemble these things next to each other and just hope that something happens.
Language organizes, ontological, seeing as,
Language organizes seeing as, perhaps without me. It just does it on its own. I should recognize that.
a gestalt, points to, representational, attunement,
Gestalts can point to attunements. Again, something that is outside of my own will or desire.
a microcosm, is noticed, conceptually independent, attunement,
So microcosms can be noticed conceptually independent of attunements. I guess that's a kind of new idea. I would think that's, yeah, I'm not sure what to do with that really.
let go of the single proposition that you are holding to, and rather catch a whole system of propositions.
Okay, so then I should just catch the microcosm and catch the attunement and catch the gestalt and not try to form them together. Again, I keep trying to move these things together, and it seems as though I'm also being instructed to sort of stop that desire, to halt it.
Resonance is not representational.
Yeah, I think that's right. Resonances are not representational. I should stop trying to make sense representationally, and I should just let the resonance be outside of a linguistic system.
Woohoo!